Mandarin first, and then I'll read it in English. Yeah, why don't you come up here? Okay.
箴言31章第10节到31节。第10节，才能的妇人谁能得着呢？她的价值远胜过珍珠。她丈夫心里依靠她，必不缺少利益。她一生使丈夫有益无损。她寻找羊绒和麻，甘心用手做工。她好像商船从远方运粮来，未到黎明，她就起来。她把食物分给家中的人，将当做的工分派婢女。她想得田地就买来，用手所得之力栽种葡萄园。她以能力束腰，使膀臂有力。他觉得所经营的有力，他的灯终夜不灭。他手拿年线杆，手把防线车。他张手周济困苦人，伸手帮补穷烦人。他不因下雪为家里的人担心，因为全家都穿着朱红衣服。她为自己制作绣花毯子，她的衣服是细麻和紫色布做的。她丈夫在城门口与本地的长老同坐，为众人所认识。她做细麻布衣裳出卖，又将腰带卖与商家。能力和威仪是她的衣服。她想到日后的景况就喜笑，她开口就发智慧。他舌上有仁慈的法则，他观察家务，并不吃闲饭。他的儿女起来称他有福，她的丈夫也称赞她，说：才德的女子很多，唯独你超过一切。艳丽是虚假的，美容是虚浮的，唯敬畏耶和华的妇女必得称赞。愿她享受操作所得的，愿她的工作在城门口荣耀她。
Thank you. Thank you, Jesse. Proverbs 31, verses 10 to 31. A capable wife who can find. She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her. Excuse me. I'll do this. And he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She is like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from afar. She rises while it is still night and provides food for her household and tasks for her servant girls. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands she plants a vineyard. She girds herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. She puts her hands to the distaff, and her hands holds the spindle. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid for her household when it snows, for all her household are clothed in crimson. She makes herself coverings. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in the city gates, taking his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them. She supplies the merchant with sashes. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household, and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her happy. Her husband too, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her a share in the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the city gates. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
I'm going to do this. I'll come back. First of all, Katie, I saw your sermon title.
Oh.
That's a really cool sermon title. But I'm going to put my own, as a man, I'm going to put my own interpretation to this passage. I believe that motherhood is a hard job. I mean, nothing to it, right? Of course it's hard. Just think about all we know concerning what being a mother is. Someone once asked a group of elementary age children some questions in regards to moms. So I want you to listen what they said to these questions, okay? So first question they asked them, why did God make mothers? So these elementary age kids said, one of them said, well, mostly to clean the house. Another one said, to help us out. And then another question says, how did God make mothers? One of them said, God made my mom just the same like he made me. He just used bigger parts. That's a pretty good answer, actually. That's a pretty good answer. How did God make mothers? God made my mom just the same like, oh, I'm sorry. Why did God give you mothers and not some other people don't have moms? Why is that? God knew she likes me a lot more than other people's mom like me. So that's why she's my mom. That's a good answer too. That's a good answer. Now here's a cool one. Why did your mom marry your dad? One kid said, my grandma says that mom didn't have her thinking cap on. I like that one too. What's the difference between moms and dads? Well, here's one kid said, dads are taller and stronger, but moms have all the real power.
Oh.
Because that's who you ask if you have to go sleepovers, right? And here's another one. If you could change one thing about your mom, what would it be? I would like for her to get rid of those invisible eyes she has on her back. That's mother for you, isn't it? Ruth Hampton once wrote, the most influential position in the nation today is held by women. A woman. She enforces law, practices medicine, and teaches without a degree, certificate of competence, or required training. A mother handles the nation's food, administers its drugs, and practices emergency first aid. This for all the spiritual, physical, and mental ills of this family. And, I'll say this from my heart, a man literally places his life and the lives of his children in the hands of this woman, his wife. Motherhood. Nothing to it, right? So what can we say? Just what we can say about motherhood. For that matter, what can we say about what it means to be a godly mother and a godly woman? Even though this day is not Mother's Day, I realize that, we can always talk about our loving moms. Anytime, any day. From a spiritual point of view, a godly woman, we turn to Proverbs 31. There's a huge, long list of what a mother would be. I thought it was funny because Katie also preached on this text today. And on her Facebook, I don't know if you realized her title for this passage. What was it?
Jesus of Proverbs 31 wife.
Jesus a Proverbs 31 wife. If you take a look at that long list, laundry list of what a godly woman is, I think only Jesus can fulfill that. I think that's her point there. I think that's a great, great title. However, if you take a look at it, in the beginning of the verses we read today, from verse 10, it says, a wife of noble character. Who can find it? This means such a woman is a rare find. Now, what does a rare find mean? Well, it means a few things, okay? It means a few things, okay? A rare find means it's rare, but I want to put it very practically for all of us here, okay? What does it mean, a rare find? First, for those men who are married, okay, I want to tell you this. It's a pastoral advice to you, okay? For those of you, us, who are married, do not, under any circumstance, when there's a disagreement between us and our other half, use Proverbs 31 as an argument tool. Do not use that. Just don't do it. I've never done it, but I only can imagine the angst I receive and the stares I get if I ever try that. Second, for those of you, young men, who are looking for a potential future spouse, do not, under any circumstance, put on your profile or introduce yourself to the fine ladies out there, I am looking for a Proverbs 31 wife. Just don't do it. You'll be single for a long, long, long time. Third, for those of you who are a little younger, are still in the house, where a wonderful mother or grandmother who is taking care of you, do not, under any circumstance, use Proverbs 31 to get back at your mother. Just don't do it. Because your meal might consist only of toast and water for a long, long time, while your brother or sisters are gloating about their meal right in front of you. Finally, for those of you who have sisters, do not, under any circumstance, use Proverbs 31 to measure her as a person. Just don't do it. Because I'm going to make it fair in a sibling fight. I'll give the sisters of this room a fighting chance. Paul says in Ephesians that a husband are to love the wives just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for the church. What does that mean? How did Christ sacrifice himself for the church? Yeah, he died. Okay, so Christ died for the church. Just don't use Proverbs 31 as an argument tool. Ever. Okay, all those disclaimers are spoken of. In any case, no matter what the Bible verses say, it's not meant for us to point it at other people and compare them to what the Bible says to them. There's a wonderful imagery that I received when I was very young about what to do with the Bible and what it says. This man said, treat Bible like a mirror, not like a flashlight. Look into the Bible to see yourself and see what's wrong with you and try to make up and brush yourself up, instead of using it to find other people's dark places. Use the Bible as a mirror, not as a flashlight. I always like that one. So, comes back to the question, what do we do with Proverbs 31 when we treat it as a mirror? Looking at ourselves, male or female, with these verses. Proverbs is a book of wise sayings. It is also categorized in the Bible as wisdom, 智慧. Wisdom books in the Bible are Book of Job, 约伯记, Book of Ecclesiastes, 传道书, and Proverbs, 箴言. So, what does Proverbs 31 say to us? I don't know about you, if you reread something like this in 10 to 31, this is what I call a laundry list of many, many things. When I see it, there's always a purpose. When I see a list, there's always a purpose to this list. A laundry list, or a honey-do list. Okay, those of you who don't know what a honey-do list is, let me explain this to you. Honey-do list is a play on the word honey-do. It's a list that a husband often have coming from his loving wife. Basically saying, honey, do these things on the list. Honey, do list. Anyways, often if there's a list, there's often a purpose or conclusion on this list. For a honey-do list, the conclusion is underlying, subliminal, underwritten, saying, if you love me, you'll do these things. Honey. It's not put there, but it's assumed. Anyways, if we look at Proverbs 31, we can see that this is a list of a rare find of a woman is. When I see this, I'll read it and then pay close attention. Any list. To place close attention at the end of these things. I'll find a conclusion of sort. For Proverbs 31, the conclusion is in verse 30. If you have Bibles with you, 31:30. It says, charm is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. 艳丽是虚假的，美容是虚浮的，唯有敬畏耶和华的妇女必得称赞。That's 31:30. This is where the author of this wise list says the conclusion. It says, nothing on the surface, what you see on the surface is real. Someone's charming, that could be deceitful. Someone looks nice, yes, that's all good, but it could be in vain. However, what's real and what's solid, and the foundation of all that is wise, is a person who fear the Lord. For this should not be coming to surprise if you read Proverbs at all, because this is something that has been said throughout the book of Proverbs. Incidentally, if you didn't know this, there's no other chapters in Proverbs. 31 is the last chapter. So 31:30 is basically nearly the last verse of all the Proverbs. Now, in the beginning of Proverbs, Proverbs 1:7, if you go back and check that 1:7, what does it say? It says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom or knowledge. 敬畏耶和华是智慧或知识的开端. So, most of you realize by now, when a sentence or a theme begins a book and ends on the same book, this is called the bookends of a book. Okay? When the theme of a book is the bookends of the book, it is important. Right? The fear of the Lord is the foundation of wisdom. This fear doesn't mean afraid. It is a little different than that. I think it's closely related, and I think it's translated better if you are in awe. A-W-E. When we use the word awesome, that word, that's awesome, right? That's what the word in awe, awesome, awe is. Where you're in awe of the Lord, that's the beginning of the foundation of wisdom. What does it mean to be in awe? That's when you're awestruck. It is to be overwhelmed by something that amazes you. When you're awestruck, that experience or that person leaves you mesmerized. Awe is uncontrolled admiration, tinged with respect, and sometimes even slight fear, slightly afraid, slight. Awe is when we meet someone who we've looked up to, like a scientist, if we're a scientist, meaning Einstein, or anyone, meaning Mother Teresa or Gandhi. So Proverbs tells us being in awe of the Lord is the beginning of the foundation of wisdom. To be in awe of the Lord, it is difficult to imagine, as we most likely will never be face to face with God. We remember the only time Moses did that. He was uncontrollably bowing down before the Lord. He was awe, both respect, admiration, and slight fear. This is why Proverbs 31 is easier for me to read. Because what does it mean to be in awe of the Lord? Because the closest I can imagine to be in awe of the Lord, the closest association, and not complete, is when we fall in love. I don't know if some of you have done that before. I have, of course. Some of you still young, so you probably don't know what that means. When we're in love, that smitten feeling, everything that this person who we fell in love with, everything that he or she does is okay with me. We can't go through a minute without thinking of her or him. We want to be with this person all the time. We want to get to know this person, intimately this person, because everything about this person we think and we face and we see is perfect. Smitten feeling. And of course, after we find out more about this person is no longer perfect. And that's called marriage. But go back to the begin in love feeling. When we want to spend every minute with this person, thinking about this person day and night, getting to know more about him or her. And when we do finally meet, the sheer smitten, awe-stricken, the admiration, the respect, that feeling, okay, we have for this person. And that is the beginning of the understanding of what it means to be in awe with God. For those of you who haven't been in love before, think of a famous person you really want to meet. LeBron, James, whatever who want to meet. Gandhi is one that I really want to meet. Okay. Mandela is another one. Okay. Think of that moment, if and when you meet with that person. That awe, that feeling, is the beginning of what it means to be awe-stricken with God. That, the author says, is the beginning and the foundation of wisdom. Once we fear or are awestricken by the Lord, then you read the rest of Proverbs 31. All of that will come naturally. When we're awestricken by the Lord, Proverbs 31 says, you'll gain trust by those who are around you. When we're awestricken by the Lord, Proverbs 31 says, you'll do good and not harm all the days of your life. When we're awestricken by the Lord, Proverbs 31 says, you'll have strength, you'll be able to provide, and your work will be fruitful. When we're awestricken by the Lord, Proverbs 31 says that you'll open your hand to the poor and you will reach out to the needy. When we're awestricken by the Lord, Proverbs 31 says that you'll be surrounded by your own strength, your own dignity. You open your mouth, you will speak wise words. When we're awestricken by the Lord, Proverbs 31 says that people, and perhaps even God, will let your work shine and be a witness to all the people in all of the city of God. When we are awestricken by the Lord, my brothers and sisters, we'll begin to see that charm is deceitful, that beauty is vain, but what's most important to us and to those around us whom we call to bless is wisdom. And that awestricken, the fear of the Lord is the foundation and the beginning of knowing that wisdom. In most of my other aspects of my life, I have learned that in order to get somewhere, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do that. For instance, in order to be good at soccer, where's Winnie? Oh, she's gone. Okay. In order to be good at soccer, you have to practice, you have to put the time in, you have to exercise, you have to run a lot. Okay? In order to be at school, you have to read, you have to do your homework, listen to teachers, perhaps even do more work, 补习班, everything else. So in order to be good at something, there's often a laundry list of things that are spelled out for you. that you have to do before you get somewhere. What I've learned, while this is true for the most of things in our lives, one thing that I found that is not true of having to do all this and then getting somewhere, one thing that's not true is our faith. Because our faith foundation is not a laundry list of things that need to be done in order to get us to learn more about God. Our foundation of faith, as it says in Proverbs, is usually one realization. A realization, and then the laundry list will follow. In Proverbs 31, it is not a laundry list of important things for us to follow. It is one realization that we believe that we are awe-stricken by the Lord. And that fact, that foundation, once you are awe-stricken by God, once you fear the Lord, that then is the beginning of that realization of the rest of that laundry list. It's flipped upside down. A lot of times our work requires us to do something to be successful. Here, the foundation is fear of the Lord, and that laundry list will then follow. Proverbs starts in chapter 1, says, fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Then the knowledge comes, and then in Staples says, when you see all that, how you get there is by fearing the Lord. Just like our faith tradition, our Reformed faith tradition. Because once you realize that grace that God has given you, that we have freely received, the rest of the laundry list, that is the fruit of the Spirit, the rest of the deeds of loving others, will naturally flow out of you. It is not doing those things you get to know God. It is getting to know God, then you'll do those things. It is not being all that stuff that Proverbs 31 tells you to be, then you'll know what knowledge is. It is fearing the Lord, and then you'll naturally be a wise woman or a wise man. This is the word of the Lord.